You are listening to the new man beyond the macho jerk and the new age wimp. Your host is men's coach Tripp Lanier.
Are you ignoring a deeper calling because you need to be successful? Are you spread too thin, struggling to keep all of those balls in the air? And what drives so many of us to spend our lives chasing wealth and status? You probably know Adrian Grenier as Vincent Chase from the hit TV series Entourage. And while Chase's life was a fantasy, Adrian's life behind the scenes had its share of ups and downs. And today, we dive into his insatiable need to prove himself, the event that kicked his ass, and the way that he's redefined himself since. Well, so most of us know you as Vincent Chase. You know, for years, that was where you came into our living rooms or on our screens, and we got to know you as this guy living this idealistic lifestyle, fame, fortune, women, buddies, great, you know, all of the good stuff. I'm curious how much of, you know, if we're kind of going to start from there, how much of that was parallel to the life you were living at that time? Was it a real contrast, or was it like, no, I was living in Hollywood and there was some of that going on too?
I mean, it's a fantasy. You know, the entourage lifestyle, it does not exist. In real life, there are consequences. In real life, there are hangovers. in real life, you know, you can't get away with the kind of things that the guys were on the show. So, you know, the show is a half-hour comedy fantasy that is, you know, based in wish fulfillment. Consumerism, indulgence, all the things.
Right.
Does that stuff exist? I mean, to some degree, sure. And unfortunately, I think it inspired a lot of people to live or attempt to live that lifestyle, which, you know, it has a dead end. There's a dead end to that pursuit.
And so, you know, the stuff that we're going to touch on a little later about your work with environmental stuff, you know, the human flourishing, all the well-being stuff, was any of that stirring for you when you were, you know, in the trailer getting ready to go on the set and film Entourage? Or when did some of these deeper values and virtues and interests start to percolate for you?
Yeah, it's always been rooted deeply in like my identity and who I am. It's whether or not I was ignoring it. And sometimes out of convenience, you know, you ignore your higher calling, your deeper purpose, for acceptance, for a quick fix or an indulgence of the moment. And the more society is rewarding you to ignore your purpose and keep feeding its agenda, you know, the harder it is to get back into alignment. So yeah, I think I did get off track for after 20 years in the business, and you know, the accumulation lifestyle, the focus on collecting those nuts, you know, like a little squirrel. You know, you realize at a certain point, it's like I'm you know, too much stuff, and it's consuming me at that point.
You know, this resisting the call, Joseph Campbell talks about this in The Hero's Journey, right? It creates a drain. Everybody's got a version of that. What was your version of that tension, or that kind of thing in your ear, that mosquito in your ear saying, you know what, you're out of alignment. There's something else here for you to do. Could you remember what that was like for you? Yeah,
in many ways, it's not unlike when you're dead asleep and the alarm is going off, and your subconscious mind incorporates it into the dream, and it's like blaring, and you're still just like deciding to sleep, you know? So I was starting to recognize that something was amidst, you know, something was off, you know, almost Neo-esque. You know, like a little glitch in the matrix. You're like, you know, where am I? I started to feel this mounting dread. Like, what? Something just doesn't feel right. And also just logically speaking, I couldn't imagine how I could be living the best life ever with no issues, no problems. And it was continuing to get better and better. And I was like, that. I look around me and people are struggling and suffering, and I just didn't have any of that. And I think it was partly because I was in a state of delusion. I was not really seeing. I was, floating above reality on some level, just in a constant escape. So part of coming back to center, I had to get back into my body and ground myself and feel all the things that I'd been avoiding, all the emotion, all the trauma, childhood trauma, pain, suffering, and get back into, get clean so that I could feel again, so that I could wake up and start to reconnect with that, what is, that deeper purpose.
So let's come back to that, because I think a lot of us would love to be able to schedule that. He's like, next year when I finish this project, that's when I'm going to go through my process. I'm going to plan this out. There's going to be a right time. I want to be able to control that. Was there an element of that for you, or was it just one of those things where you turned around and somebody kicked you down the stairwell?
Right. You want to schedule the cesarean, just
right.
In and out and get that tummy tuck, and then
no big deal.
Yeah, I mean, in many ways, it is a birthing process. You're birthing yourself, and there's no easy way to go through that, and nor should there be. Have yourself a natural birth, and it's never the perfect time. It's always going to be inconvenient, but can you afford not to? That's the question. You say, "Oh, I can't afford it." Well, maybe you can't afford it financially, but can you afford it spiritually? And the answer is always no, because if you don't deal with it in this moment, now, in this life, you have to deal with it eventually. And the challenge of it just keeps mounting. It's like doing the dishes. Fucking do the dishes, otherwise they're going to pile up, and then it's a worse pain in the ass, and then you get roaches, and then, other issues mount.
Yeah. There was a version of this happening in my life years ago. I was outrunning the tiger, and I just knew at one point the tiger was going to get me, and it was just a sweet surrender. It wasn't sweet at the time, but it just felt good to I don't have to outrun this thing anymore. Mm-hmm. Before that moment, there was a thing, this is going to obliterate me. This is going to ruin my career. This is going to, my friends, there was this thing of everything felt like it was going to be destroyed. In your world, did you see okay, cool, I think I can make this work and not lose my career, or not you were doing this bartering process and maybe I can see, because I remember for me, it was this is just going to blow it all up. I don't know how I'm going to put all the pieces back together again. Or how was it for you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I had a couple of big disappointments that, were real indications that something was wrong, something was off, and I just ignored them. I just pretended them away. Like
what? Can you give us a sense of what that was?
I was so over leveraged. I mean, I was spread thin. So I had so many deals going on. I was a mini mogul in the music industry. And then I fancied myself also a real estate mogul, and I was directing films and I was acting in them and starting businesses. And I at first I was having some success and I was doing well. But then as I started to, take my eyes off the balls, all of them, because, I'm one person. I started losing deals and losing businesses, and things weren't working. They just were, not flying. They weren't taking off. So, I just kept pretend, and especially when you're in acting, and we all I think we all have a certain taste of what it's like to project and put forth an image of success. And fake it till you make it. And I just continued to do that, through social media and through my fame is just, oh yeah, everything's great. And all the things that I say I'm going to do, I'm doing. And thinking somewhere in the back of my mind, I got to salvage this. I got to get this back together. And just believing that, like Vince says, it'll all work out, it'll always work out. He always gets the movie in the end. And eventually I just wanted to be done with that, that cycle.
Yeah. Was it a need to prove? Was it, I don't want to miss out. I've got to, everybody's got their poison, right? So what was the thing for you that led you to I'll just keep taking on more and more and more?
Well, I mean, now that I know myself a little bit better, my core wound is abandonment. And I wanted to be accepted. I wanted people to like me and want me, and so in this society, it seems that the only way people will want you or respect you is if you're rich, famous, or some version of those things. So for me, it was feeling powerful and feeling secure as like a, whatever I thought was a man. Because I'd never gone through that rite of passage to grow up and become a man. So I was just basically playing adulting and pretending to be powerful. But I was just, I was just really scared. I mean, ultimately,
Yeah. This is what I do to be enough. This is what I do to be loved. How am I doing? And it will never fill up that hole because it's not really love. It's coming back.
Yeah. And I thought that I was killing it. I was like, wow, I am loved and I'm awesome and I'm all these things, and I can almost convince myself, it's like, and convince a lot of people along the way, who were willing to indulge me and then indulge themselves in that, so. After I sort of woke up, if you will, I looked back over time and I started to realize how many people were complicit in that fantasy, were, sort of mutually supporting the escape trajectory. Now the people I roll with are a lot more grounded, and it's a lot less fun because they'll tell you like it is.
A little more grown up, right? Actually,
right. They'll call you on your bullshit, but I feel like we're now building something of true substance, and true meaning.
What was that wake up? You said you motioned that there was a wake up. What was that event?
The inciting incident, if you will, the rock bottom for me was losing my partner, who I thought I was going to be with for the rest of my life. And I mean, frankly, she dumped my ass. And I, it's just like the cognitive dissonance. I was like, you're leaving me when I'm all of these things that I've made myself believe that I am and made the world believe that I am. You're going to leave this guy? Like, you must have a problem.
Right.
And then there I was all by myself without what I really wanted. That was like the deeper calling inside of me. You want to have a partnership. You want to have a family. And I wasn't connected to that, but it kept, that alarm was going off. And then, so after I finally started to really consider it, I was like, oh, she's right. She sees me more honestly than I was seeing myself. So that was my rock bottom. And that was she was the angel that came down and bitch slapped me.
Right. Yeah. And I can see where that could happen. And it was like, well, I'll change for her. I'll change to win her back. But I don't get that was the sense of what was the root of your change. How did you make it kind of shift back and do it for yourself then?
Well, no, I was doing the song and dance so that she could get me back. I could get her back. Right. But God bless her. She was like, bullshit. She saw right through it, and as women are really good at, she was just like, oh yeah, let me see if I can poke holes in this. And it was just like Swiss cheese, just easy. And she held strong, and she did not she didn't reward any of my bullshit. And I had to really change for her to buy it, to believe it. And I, it took me a lot longer than just a quick costume change. I had to actually fully transform, metamorphosize from the inside out. And that was painful, and it sucked, and it was lonely and scary. And I did have to lose myself, my identity, what I was attached to. I had to let go of and shed the fame, the wealth, the houses, the identities. Long process.
Yeah. And when you say long, what are we talking about? How long was that phase for you?
It was about a 2-year process.
Yeah.
And then every time you're like, oh yeah, now I've really changed. So you're just like, wait, there's just one little more thing that you didn't.
You forgot this.
Right. It's like you have to if you don't fully, totally, absolutely change, there's going to be tendencies or habits that will subsist, and then will start to pull you back into old mindsets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's a full death, like an absolute annihilation of self.
Yeah.
And, and only one that's totally, totally done entirely, when you're dead, then you can start to reemerge.
Yeah. And so coming out of that period, was there, for me and some of the guys that I've worked with, there's a sense of like, what? It's kind of a scorched earth thing. It's like, where do I find that next thing? And it's like listening for even the slightest hint of a song or a bell or something to move towards. What was that for you? What did you start to, how did you start to find your way from that place? What I did was I started to work a lot in the earth. I went to a psychic, and she basically said, you need to ground yourself. You're totally ungrounded. I was like, what are you talking about? I have an ocean organization. I do, charity work. She's like, not ocean, not water, like soil, get in the ground. You do it. Don't like hire someone to do it. It's not an external thing that you're going to go out and, be humble, but you're going to actually get on your hands and knees and be humble. And I took that advice, and then I started a community garden, and I spent every day just working in the earth. And so I started building off of that, really. That was home base. I was like, okay, this I know is good. And I started to feel the benefits within my spirit, and just feeling, like this is where I need to be. This feels good. It was undeniable that I was safe there. And so I just extrapolated from there. I'm like, okay, earth, good. Make food, like fresh food, eat the food. It's good for me. And work and being able to tap into that masculine part of myself that wanted to build and create and to use my body
And you know, growing up in New York, just totally detached from my body and, you know, disconnected from the earth, walking on concrete with buildings, no sky, and just such a relief as a man to do that work. And it was so simple. It was so simple, but also challenging. And, you know, I mean, all the creative parts of me were sparked too, because I mean, to create, it's a creative process to grow food, and there's challenges that, you know, my masculine self wants to figure out, and what can I build and use my hands to build. So it was really firing all of the layers of my masculinity, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I'm going to keep doing this. So all of the playtime and the movies and the abstraction of building businesses and being a CEO and you know, like all of those fantasies sort of were put aside for this effort.
Yeah. I love that story. I hear versions of this over and over again, which is in our minds, there's the theory. This is what I need to fill me up. This is what's going to have me feel fulfilled. And it's going to be all the businesses and the fame and the money and all the attention, et cetera, which is a far cry from the actual experience that you're describing. Where do I actually feel alive? Where do I actually feel at peace? Where do I actually feel grounded? It's when I'm on my hands and knees and I'm digging in the fucking earth. And this is where I feel alive. And it sounds crazy to that part of us that has identified the theories. And we'll spend our whole lives chasing those theories without ever really testing the experience. The experience isn't there that you're talking about. And we're willing to go into that craziness. That craziness seems dangerous to that egoic self-identity, that image that we have for ourselves. But I love how you have gone down this road. And I imagine if somebody came to you and said, you know, in a few years, you're going to find your biggest happiness crawling around in a garden. You thought it was crazy, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a sense of belonging, right? And that's that's something that a lot of us, and especially these days, lack, that sense of belonging. And we think that belonging is something that we can take. But it's really allowing ourselves to be nested, to be held, to be placed within, you know, giving yourself to something, you know, and which
is scary. If you've been abandoned, if you've got that going on, it's like, I'm not going to let you hold me because you could leave me. That comes up for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So best to just, you know, play it safe. It feels good to surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. Not easy. No. So, okay. So you're in the gardening phase and finding yourself, grounding yourself in that phase, but there's more creativity too, or kind of walk us through that. What was the process as you started to go from that very, very simple grounding to, okay, now what?
Well, at the time when I was questioning everything, you know, my habits, my patterns, what I thought I knew I was, what I thought I knew the world looked like, because I was like, well, I got that wrong pretty badly. I got that wrong, and so because everything was broken open, I had permission to question everything, and then totally reinvent my worldview. So I let go of a lot of politics, a lot of social identities, and got back into philosophy. Like what is life? Who are we? What are we doing here? Just like the basic existential questions. And that really was exciting. It was a learning period for me, discovering new philosophers and new ideas about beingness and, you know, where we're headed as a society, and locking into a new perspective and orienting myself into a higher order of thinking, so that now I know why I'm here and what I'm doing and what I'm trying to actually accomplish with what community, with the people that now are, you know, starting to let go of the old paradigm of consumption and then step into a new identity, a new collective identity of, how we're going to create a world that is resilient and truly equitable and deeply fulfilling, not all the superficial, consumerism and materialism that, has sort of dominated the past however long.
Right. Yeah. And so, it seems that there was a process where it'd be easy to create a duality before and after that event, right? That awakening, as you call it. So it's like, before that, all bad. After that, all good. So I don't integrate anything that happened before that. Yeah, I hear you saying I'm questioning everything now, right? It's like, wait a second, that led me down the path where I got my ass kicked. I don't know if I want to do that again. How did you start to reintegrate some of the things? Because you're acting, you are doing investing, you are doing some of the things that were in your life before. What's the relationship now?
Oh yeah, I think it's extremely important to integrate and embrace, those layers of you that to just like demonize it was bad and therefore I must shame and reject that aspect of myself, I think creates other problems. So yeah, I had to also go back and honor the parts of myself that were potentially, embarrassing or shameful or destructive, and partly to own it, to acknowledge it and be honest about, my behaviors and my tendencies, and then also to recognize that was an important part of my growth. And so that way you can be whole, not just latching on to new, fantasies of self, but to recognize the full range of, and so I was working a lot I was like wrestling with this idea of money itself. Like why did I believe? And, looking around, it's pretty easy to know why, but why do I feel like I need all this money? Where's this sense of scarcity coming from? What is true wealth? I have all the things. I'm in the 1%. Why am I still wanting more? Is it, just asking questions like, is it ethical to have billionaires in society? How do you correct for that if it's not? And you just all these questions started to, knock on my door. And I was excited to explore new ways of defining wealth.
Yeah. I appreciate that there's a way to go back, and whatever it could be, right? It's just, I've known people are like, they move beyond and they're like, oh, I can't be this playful part of me anymore because that playful guy will get drunk at a party and, offend somebody or whatever it was. And there's just ways to kind of like, nope, all bad. And it's like, wait a second, that was a step on the ladder. That was part of who I am. And if wholeness means accepting all of me, not just, well, if I cut my arm off, then I'm cool with all the parts of me. Right. And then coming back to money, which has so much juice around it, has so much polarity of either all bad, all good, root of all evil, all these things, but coming back to it and saying, okay, what does it mean for me at this stage of the game? And so what did you learn for you? Like, what is a healthy version of being an investor for you at this time? Because most people put their investments in a place and it's a weird symbol and they don't even know what the hell it's investing in. And it sounds like for you, especially with DuContra and the things that you guys are trying to do, that there's a lot more awareness around where the money's going. So walk me through that.
Yeah. I mean, I've been working a lot, and it's constant challenge because a lot of the mentalities around money are insidious. They're like sort of baked into our DNA on some level. So I'm always needing to check myself and make sure that I'm not getting lost again in sort of ego identities around money and accumulation. But part of my work is to get into right relationship with money and recognizing that it is a tool, that it is not the goal. And I'm not trying to get more money so that I can have more in my bank account or that I can get more stuff and buy more stuff. I'm using money as a tool to create, as Charles Eisenstein says, a better world that our hearts know is possible. And so that's what I have to keep, reminding myself that, and one of the quotes we often use is money's a tool and the spirit of the tool is determined by the hand of the user. So it's an extension of who you are, what you're, it can be used for ill or for good, depending on what's in your heart and what you're sort of actually attempting to create. So placing it in, right relationship to your will and then like looking at what you're doing in the world and why. So it gets back to now deeper purpose and why, and then letting the money, flow as an energy and a tool to achieve that goal, versus I need to just go get more of that in whatever way and sacrifice my values. I've done that. Like I have literally prostituted myself out in Hollywood to get more money and more fame so that I could get more opportunities to prostitute myself to get more. It's like that commercial, to get more drugs so I could work more and so I can buy more drugs. And so I can,
that cycle. Yeah. It's also, there's gotta be, you're back to the community piece too, which is, the money world is largely that mindset of the answer is always more, right? We're just going to go make more. And again, I don't have a problem with money. I love that you're bringing it back to the level of consciousness that the person is using the tool. So if my community is really rooted in that more thing, I'm going to feel out of alignment, or I'm going to feel that unconscious or maybe conscious pressure to match that. This is the game we play. Instead of, okay, what's the game I want to play? And now who are my people? Who's going to meet me there? Who's playing at this level? How do we meet up and then use money to do ABC in the world? So how did you find your people in that way that could meet you at that altitude of consciousness, but then also have the resources to go and do the things that you guys are doing?
Well, I'm still finding them, and also some people that are, operating at a high level emotionally or like on an interpersonal level as just, they're on their path and they're doing their work and they're showing up and willing to look at themselves and continue to level up. Their relationship to money may still be a little bit iffy. As mine is too. So I'd say it's not so much like finding the people that are perfect and like now we all live in harmony, but it's more finding people that are willing to look at themselves and continue to challenge their sort of expectations of things, because we have to discover new ways. In many ways, I feel like we all are laboratories for what's possible. And so we should always be experimenting and trying things. And I don't know what the right relationship, what is, being in right relationship to money? I don't know. So I'm really interested in challenging those expectations and introducing new tools and new ways of exchanging value that isn't the expected, dollars and, monetary system that we currently have. So for me, finding new thinkers, people who are willing to try new ways of being. One thing that we're doing here at Kintsugi, at the community that we're building, is exploring how we can use crypto technology or alternate forms of currency to exchange value within the community. Not to be unrealistic, like we're not going to ultimately have to also trade and exchange with our current system, but be a laboratory to try new ideas, because we believe that there are better ways to do things. And if we don't create those new models, how do we expect, what are we going to replace the existing shitty model with?
I love that that it is an experiment, and it's not, oh, we figured it out. We figured out the next rigid system, right? You move from one form of rigidity, which is actually pretty fragile. It takes a conversation with your girlfriend, and then everything goes tits up. So on the flip side is, hey, we're willing to go into this place. It's an experiment. We're figuring it out. We know we're not perfect, but we're learning. We want to integrate some of these other things, some of the intangible aspects, some of the interpersonal aspects of life into this. And I just love that, because there's an aspect of this, like, you can fucking do that, right? Like it seems unimaginable, maybe, I don't know, 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago, that you could start to do investment this way and lean into that place and say, well, what if we could do that? What if we could find a new possibility? And I'm trying to imagine how that version of you might have seen it 15 years ago. And now today it might seem that might seem crazy, but nonetheless, this is where you are, and this is where you're moving and growing. And how sad would it be if you were still stuck in that old, rigid, fragile system, which a lot of guys will choose to stay stuck in. They'll find a way to numb themselves and, kind of distract themselves as best as they can. And I'm not saying they have to follow your path, but they won't heed that call. They won't go into that uncertainty, and they sure as hell won't start to experiment. Yeah.
Yeah. And if you think about, goals, if you have a goal, until you achieve that goal, you're continuously in a failed state. You haven't reached the goal yet, so you're failing in every moment. But you continue to fail until you succeed, and now you've reached your goal. So I've allowed myself to imagine what I want, what I believe the world can be, and we're not there yet. We're still stumbling through it. But to be able to, in business, an entrepreneur, in entrepreneurship, it's fail faster, make as many mistakes as possible when you're young, and you can bounce back from those failures, because that is the learning that will get you to achieve your goals. And I was playing it way too safe before, and it was fucking dull. I was dull. I was just, a caricature of myself, not like rugged in the fucking trenches, doing something new and interesting. And if I don't make it, at least, I've learned a lot that I can pass on to my brothers and sisters and be like, now you take it from here, because I gave myself to that cause.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about DuContra. What is that? I've been reading about it. Sounds really interesting, the types of things that you guys have an eye on and want to empower. What is DuContra?
So we are an impact investment company, and we just have a unique approach to what impact is. We invest across 4 verticals that we believe will actually support a thriving, better future. So do consumer, what we consume, and how. So better for you consumption, products, and anything that we are consumers. We do need to eat and to do all the things that we do when we buy things, but we can do it better, right? So investing in companies that are doing things better. Personal development and the betterment of the human being is also, so human flourishing. How do we invest in companies that are designed to support the up-leveling of the individual, so that you can be better stewards of the planet, you can take better care of yourself, make better sense of the world, and then ultimately make better choices. And so that, a lot of times in philanthropy, it's like you're trying to change the world out there. First, you got to change the world in here. Again, the spirit of the tool is determined by the hand of the user. So make sure that you got your ship in order before you start applying, putting energy out there and building. So the up-leveling of the human being, human flourishing, communitas. How do we work together? How do we bring people together, especially in this fragmented society? People feel isolated and disconnected. So businesses are actually helping to bring people together in physical space and retreats and new ways of working together, work share, those kinds of things. And then finally, it's the future of finance. So as we were mentioning, how do we invest in tools and new ways of creating value, and then also equity and access? How do we get as many people the tools, money, the tool to actually create? So we believe within those four verticals, we can actually infuse a lot of energy into the overall betterment of society.
Excellent, man. That's exciting, and excited to see with the experiment how it unfolds for you. Very cool. Adrian, thank you so much, man. I really enjoy connecting. I appreciate you taking the time, man.
Thank you, my man.
All right, brother. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
If these interviews are helping you, please leave a positive review on whatever podcast app you use so that others can discover the show more easily.